Greetings everyone, I hope you're well and having a great day. I'm Donovan and welcome to Burnout and Brake Stuff. This week's BBS video, we'll be working on our hot dog flavored water project, our 1973 Dart Sport 340. What we're going to be doing is restoring a functional brake system to the car, servicing its rear differential, and installing the correct spring for the passenger side of the car. I ordered the wrong one. I didn't want a 454 spring. I didn't want a biased super stock spring for that side, but I had to make a video. I ordered the wrong part. I used the part, I made the video. Now I have to do the job over, which I can't stand doing, but it is what it is. So let's get into it. Follow along, and I appreciate everyone who likes, objectively comments, shares, and subscribes, trying to grow a channel here. So thank you very much. Next up on our to-do list is to service the rear differential. Now, I was going back through my paperwork on this car, and the license plates expired in December of 1989. That's quite some time ago. Graduated high school in 1988. This t-shirt right here, I got at Baxter's Chrysler Plymouth Jaguar Range Rover dealer in Omaha, Nebraska. I worked with them from 1988 to 89. I got this from Dan, the Mac tool guy. Anyway, part of this, I bet that most likely has the original lubricant in it from 1973. Let's find out. There's our tag 320 321. Our axle ratio there. Brake lines in the way. There we go. Let's see what kind of goop comes out of here. That ought to be interesting. Alright. We'll let that one be loose so the cover can hang. I can still see through it, ish. I'm going to leave the cover on it while I work on the brake system, letting this drain. And with the cover on it, it'll prevent any type of debris and what have you from getting into it. All right. Let's work on our brake system. Now we're going to install our flexible replacement brake hose. This one happens to be stainless steel braided coated, which is nice, or stainless steel braided, which is nice. I've already lubricated all of my brake ends on the hose, on the fittings, on the wheel cylinders, all of that. It's a good idea to use a wire brush if there happens to be any rust or debris on the line to the fitting, as well as flare wrenches, or some people refer to them as line wrenches, whichever, These are important. They're critical for helping to not round off the fittings. So let's get under there and get this taken care of. With our old one-piece brake hose removed from the equation, and both of our hard lines removed from the axle housing, I'm using brake clean to spray through the tubing, and I'll use compressed air to blow that out. I'm also using a Scotch-Brite pad to clean off the steel tubing to give it an inspection to see if it has any rust, anything that would cause it to fail, and these are checking out well. So I've got that one cleaned up. I still need to do this one. Next up then will be our 2-piece replacement braided steel line brass fitting. I've already wrapped in the appropriate direction with Teflon tape the fastener to hold that down on the axle housing. So that's what's next up. Let's get these things installed. Today we're going to be installing brakes, rear brakes on our 73 Dart Sport. And we need to get the drums off. So what we need to do, rather than take a hammer and pound on them, trying to free them from the shoes, the backing plate, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go under the car and we're gonna remove these caps from the backing plate. What that does is exposes our adjuster to where we can use a screwdriver to push this little stop away from the star wheel. Hear the clicking? Every time the car backs up, if there's sufficient clearance between the shoe and the drum, the reverse mechanism allows the brake to self-adjust. So that'll get tight. If these wear up inside the drum, it'll hold the drum where you can't get it off. So what we want to do is take a screwdriver or a specialized brake tool, push that away from there, and turn it in the opposite direction from under the car. This brings our shoes together. Then we should be able to remove our drum. Now, if that fails to work, the two nail heads, not sure the appropriate terminology, I just call them nail heads. These can be ground off with a die grinder. These springs that hold the shoes to the backing plate will then pop free, freeing the shoe from the backing plate, and off it'll come. So that's what we're gonna do today. Gonna get ourselves some wheel cylinders, springs, and shoes installed on our 73 Dart Sport. So let's get into it. With our adjusters backed off, now our drum has some side plate, some freedom to move. That will allow wiggling the drum off from the register on the axle and around the wheel studs. A lot of times these things can look like they're frozen on here and there's no way that they're coming off, and people will get after them with a hammer, beating on them, when in fact what they need to do is just take the adjuster and back the adjuster off. So let's set aside. Wow, we need to show you how much friction material is left on those backing plates or on those shoes themselves. Not much, maybe an eighth on that front one, and less than that somewhere, yeah, maybe a 16th left on the back there. So let's show what we have. Here is the up close and personal look of how much friction material is left on our brake shoe. Yowza, not much at all. Well, the springs, all of that look good. They're kind of dirty, but other than that, I mean, they live in a dirty environment. So other than that, all of the hardware inside still looks good. The drum itself is still in decent shape. It's not heavily scarred or anything. I can feed it to Igor, and Igor will clean that right up, and I'll take a measurement on it. I mean, that's still the factory Chrysler drum, most likely. There's the There's the Pentastar. So most likely it's still original equipment from '73. Most people didn't take their vehicles back to dealerships to get simple things like that done. They take it to a more cost-effective repair shop and have it done. But let's get busy and let's get those shoes and that wheel cylinder replaced and get this brake system working. With our drum removed and a basic inspection done, it's time to get our springs removed so we can get our shoes out of the way. Now they make specialty tools for doing all of this. I don't know how much these are today. I bought these back in the 80s when I worked at a car dealership. If you don't have specialty tools, you know, these particular tools can be used to perform the same function, right? If there's a will, there's a way. You'll get it done. So let's get in here and start taking it apart. And remember, you can take one can take this side all apart and use the other side as a reference for putting this back together. So don't take both sides apart at the same time. That way a person has a reference to how to put it back together. Then again, there's always the cell phone. Just take a picture of it. With all of our brake area here cleaned up, I've removed the wheel cylinder and checked it for movement. It moves smoothly, easily, and the rubber seals here are not worn out, doesn't leak, so the bleeder screws come loose. It's all set to go. So basically everything's cleaned and ready for installation of brake parts. So let's get to that. With our replacement brakes installed, all the springs, everything's set to go. I've put a little anti-seize lubricant down here on the adjuster, so that'll stay free to move when it needs to, when the vehicle backs up, and if there's space between, it'll adjust itself out. Our brake drums have been cleaned, inspected, and painted, ready to install. So just slide that up on there like that, and a slight amount of drag on it, as it comes off pretty easy. Put a couple more clicks in there and keep centering it up. And we're set to go. We can do our final adjustments from behind if we need to. So that takes care of this side. Passenger side, rinse and repeat. With our brake work complete and our differential inspected, fluid cleaned out of it, nothing seems out of the ordinary. It still has its inspection marks and the like on it. Hopefully it's all good. Let's get our inspection cover installed and top it up with lubricant. With our differential inspection cover reinstalled, next up on the to-do list, we're turning our hard lines for our brakes. So let's get them installed. And then on to our favorite thing, everyone's favorite, bleeding the brakes. Just reviewing our brake line installation, our overall installation of drums and inspection cover. Unfortunately, our braided hose didn't work and I had to reuse the one that I have, but I feel as, you know, I'm confident in its ability to work, so I'll reuse it for now. With our inspection cover reinstalled on our differential, next we're going to top it up with some lubricant. It's real easy to do. You remove this plug. It's just a square plug that a 5/8 wrench will go on. I prefer to use a 3/4 inch 12-point socket. Snaps right in there, take it right out. Simple enough to know when it's full because it starts running back out the drain hole, or the fill hole, pardon me. We drain it from the inspection cover, or you can drain it from the fill hole with a suction device. Anyway, let's fill it up. With our differential topped up with fluid, next up we're gonna swap in our second 455 spring to replace this 454 spring. I accidentally ordered the biased spring that will create a higher passenger side so the car will sit uneven. The idea is when the torque reaction happens, the driver's side will raise up to match the height of the passenger side and take off. So once I get these two springs out, I'll get them side by side and we'll answer Motorman 85's comment about, you know, not going too far into the scientific weeds. Why did Chrysler bias this spring? Basically, I lightly just hit on that. It's to raise the driver's side to match the passenger side in height at the time of the torque reaction. So we'll get into that. Let's get it replaced. So why did Chrysler use a biased spring on the passenger side of the car that caused the passenger side of the car to sit higher in the air than the driver's side of the car? So what we'll do is we'll look underneath the car at the cardboard template I put up with an arrow that's in a counterclockwise manner. Think about that rear axle as a propeller. What's normally happening is it's turning in a counterclockwise direction that lifts this right rear tire off the ground. That tire on the driver's side is being driven into the ground. What is also happening is the body is rising on the driver's side, bending the spring into a higher arch. On the passenger side, the body and the axle are coming together. What Chrysler did was basically stopped this side of the car from collapsing and this tire losing traction. So theoretically, if we were able to get both sides to balance out and the vehicle not to roll over onto the passenger side so much, a limited slip differential wouldn't be necessary. Both sides would have equal traction. That's not easy to do. So one way that it can be controlled is with a double adjustable shock. The driver's side shock can be set to where it slows down the extension rate, and the passenger side compression can be set to where it slows down the compression on the passenger side, allowing the car to remain as level as possible and all of the motion pointed at the end of the track. Because any motion that's lost at the starting line adds hundredths, tenths, or worse, a whole second to your elapsed time. That's why Chrysler did this, was to try to get the car to launch level and apply traction equally to both sides. No rise, no squat would be perfect. All motion pointed towards the end of the track. So let's get our 454 spring out of the way and get our 455 spring in, because I'm not building a drag specific car. I'm building a street car that anybody can use for just about any function they want to use it for. So that's what I'm hoping for, is to pass the car on to somebody who really wants it and decides, you know, whatever direction they want to take with it, whether it's all a street car or it's part street car, part drag racing car, or they go off-roading with it, for crying out loud. Why not? Have some fun. Spin some tires in the dirt. Okay, let's get our spring swapped out.
So how did we do? Let's take a few moments and look at what we've accomplished in this video. We have two functioning brake systems now. A hydraulic brake system, excellent, great pedal pressure, and a park brake, emergency brake, hand brake, whatever your vernacular. That now works, excellent. Because no matter how fast or how quick a car can go, all that hard work will end up in your underwear when you crash a car with a failed brake system. So let's take a walk around and see the rest of our progress. Here's our driver's side front suspension, new brake hoses, ball joints, you know, that type of stuff, all the steering components new. And It's not leaking. Our master cylinder has been reused. It's still in working order. Doesn't leak. Provides hydraulic pressure. That's all excellent stuff. Shot over here, passenger side. Let's go check out our rear. We have our two 455 springs now installed. Our Competition Engineering 3-way adjustable shocks or dampers, whichever your preference. And there's our freshly serviced 8 1/4 and checked out the brake lines, cleaned them up, reused them, nothing wrong with them. You know, it's always good to take a minute and look at what you've done on a project, because it just seems like it's a lot of work, and not paying attention in the long run of the overall accomplishment. And it feels good to take a look around at what we've done. So anyway, thank you very much for viewing. Subscribing is really important. I appreciate all the returning subscribers and the folks that subscribe and comment. All excellent things. Thank you very much. And what's most important is everyone has an excellent day. That's what's most important.